Okay. Y'all ready? Let's do it. Let's talk about it. So, this whole situation between Tyler the Creator and DJ Khaled has been absolutely ridiculous. It's a little old now to still be talking about it, but I believe that there's still some important stuff that we can glean from this whole situation. I was actually just talking about this with Crooked Eye. He just had me on his show. It's called Crook's Corner over on the Hip Hop DX YouTube channel. So, I would suggest you head on over there. Give this a watch. It's pretty good. 41 minutes. We talk about this amongst other things during that. So shout out to Crooked Eye for having me on. But anyway, this variety piece has sort of shed a lot of new light on this whole situation between Khaled and Tyler. This article illuminated the situation a little bit, so I figured I would run through it real quick. What's not to celebrate? This is one interesting thing that a lot of people haven't been considering. This is a situation between two sibling labels. So let's talk about it. At issue here is not just DJ Khaled's 101,000 direct-to-consumer sales that were disqualified. His album, Father of Assad, was included with sales of energy drinks through an e-commerce site, shop.com. Billboard determined that the site and its parent company, Market America, had crossed a line by encouraging unauthorized bulk sales, according to the New York Times. So basically the situation is that DJ Khaled, everybody in the music game, just for those who don't understand, everybody in the music game now bundles their album, a streaming version of their album, with different products. And Tyler the Creator did the exact same thing. Khaled did a more slimy, weird version of it by bundling it with some stupid energy drink. But Tyler did the same thing with like posters or shirts or something like that. But I believe that the difference there is that it's very easy to make the case that the shirts and the posters or whatever that Tyler was giving away, that's much more related to the album, whereas this energy drink thing that Khaled tried to pull off was far less related. And so according to them, Khaled's album spent $5 million to record, and it's all because of the features. Yeah, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Travis Scott, Post Malone, all that shit does not come cheap. Which is interesting because you would think that like some percentage of Khaled's stars that he gets on his albums would be willing to waive their fee or significantly lessen their fee. Like you got to think that whatever Post Malone is charging like some random person to do a feature with them, or not even a random person, but a relatively popular act who wants to enlist his help. Same thing with Travis Scott. You would think that DJ Khaled, because he has such a history of making hits, that he would be able to sort of negotiate a much lower fee. But still, $5 million sounds like a shitload. Like if you're Jay-Z and you've been doing verses for Khaled for like forever, you'd think he'd be charging a bunch less. But I guess even when you're Jay-Z, a lot less is probably still a lot. This is the part that I actually found super interesting. Further complicating relations, sources tell Variety that Sony has an unofficial policy of discouraging infighting when it comes to sibling labels competing albums on the chart, much like the company's mandate that its labels not overbid each other when competing to sign acts and to not poach employees from each other either. So this is interesting because they're describing some policies that apparently are unwritten but just understood, that between these different branches of Sony, fighting is discouraged because they don't want to have to compete against each other. And I've had these conversations. I've had conversations with artists before where artists told me that basically there were two different labels that were bidding on them to sign them. And in some cases, I've heard about the labels not being allowed to bid against each other. So that kind of complicated things for that artist, where he was in a situation where he potentially could get a bunch of money, but instead the bidding leveled off because he didn't have a third party that could bid it up. It was just like a standoff where normally one would outbid the other, but they refused to outbid each other because they were all technically owned by the same company. And then also I've heard about the situation in which two different branches of one label were sort of like ghost bidding the offer up on behalf of the artist. That definitely happens too, where somebody is bidding in a situation where they wouldn't actually plan on spending the money that they're saying that they want to spend on an artist, in order to bid up the amount that that artist is going to get for a signing bonus. And that is presumably done so that they could get some kind of kickback on the side, using the label money to basically get the artist more money and then get a chunk of that on the side. So this does happen. But it's interesting that this is being acknowledged in here. Khaled's displeasure with the situation has become a matter of public record. He and several associates made an in-person appearance at Sony Music's New York headquarters last week where he berated Epic staffers for several hours. This is really, I mean, they're describing a temper tantrum that sounds pretty incredible, to be totally honest. Several Sony employees described hearing yelling from the Michael Jackson conference room at the company's Madison Avenue offices. Khaled then made his way to the offices of Rock Nation, the Jay-Z-owned management concern that has handled the is that concern? I think it's supposed to say company, right? That has the multi-hyphenate career since 2016 and gave an encore performance. Khaled's ire was aimed, at least in part, at Epic's chairman Sylvia Rhone, with his main complaint centering around issues with downloads that the fans who brought into the bundle were experiencing. But while outlets like the New York Post characterized Khaled's outburst as a temper tantrum, a source close to the artist describes Khaled as passionate and concerned, noting that he didn't threaten Rhone. So I guess that's nice, but let's be real about this. This is a really bad look for Khaled. The fact that all these details are getting out there, the fact that he did that embarrassing video where he's talking down on Tyler, it's all really bad for Khaled. Khaled being somebody whose entire personal brand is truly based on positivity. When you think about the sort of return to form that Khaled has had, not a return to form, but the reinvention that he's had over the past however many years, 5, 6 years, whatever. I can remember when Khaled was more of just like a normal person, when he presented himself as a normal person, when he was more likely to, you know, just have a sort of conversation on camera that was a little bit less of this sort of persona that he has crafted for himself. And that's not to take anything away from him, because I have a huge amount of respect for him. But, you know, I remember when he was a little bit more of a real dude. And then at some point, and it was really kind of part of his whole Snapchat transformation, he sort of became meme Khaled, where he was, you know, more likely to give a motivational speech than to have sort of like a normal conversation, to the extent that his on-camera conversations were ever really normal. But I think over time he's realized that he has to present this version of DJ Khaled that is all about positivity, and that version of himself is much more saleable than just him being a regular dude. Everything about this has really taken away from that image that he's crafted. He just really chose a poor enemy in Tyler, the Creator, to go up against when you consider the fact that his album is basically just this big orchestrated shit show thing that's just more like a compilation. And who knows, like, to what extent Khaled is even involved in this from like a business or from a musical perspective, and to what extent he's just, you know, sort of stepping in and putting his face on it. Because let's face it, the producers and the rappers, they can make these songs without Khaled. It's not clear exactly to what extent these are all just being mailed in, or if they whatever are being done ever in his presence. So I think regardless of the fact that some of these people seem to think that he was just passionate and concerned, from a PR standpoint, this is all bad for Khaled. That much should be obvious. So they give a little bit more info about how Sylvia Rhone was actually in France, and Khaled wanted to yell at her apparently, but she wasn't around. She had food poisoning. I don't know why I need to know that. Speaking to the New York Times, Rock Nation COO Desiree Perez said, "We dispute their decision on behalf of DJ Khaled and, frankly, every artist who is forced to navigate bundling an album downloaded with inexpensive items that still effectively represents their brand. It's confusing and demeaning to the art." That much is pretty clear. I think this is going to be a watershed moment for the streaming bundle concept. I just don't think it's going to survive this. And one thing that hasn't really been discussed is that Rolling Stone is doing their own chart that's going to compete with Billboard. So we really don't know how popular it'll be or what will be different. We're not sure exactly what problems they're trying to address with this Rolling Stone chart. And I guess one thing that you could say is, like, who the hell are Rolling Stone at this point? But I mean, Rolling Stone, I think they do certainly hold, you know, some degree of respect in the game for some reason. The brand name does hold some respect, even though really Who the hell is reading Rolling Stone? Do you even know if they're still in print? I personally don't know, and I don't really care. But Rolling Stone, they're going to at least provide some competition. And one thing that they might want to address, I would think, if they want to really brand themselves, which I assume they do, if they want to brand themselves as a really authoritative site to go to find out about album sales, well, Rolling Stone, address that. Brand yourself as the one playing ground where the bundle doesn't count, and I guarantee you that Billboard will be close behind, because they're just going to have to fall in line too, because this whole bundling thing is just ridiculous. Nobody wants this to count. The extent to which the fact that people are paying so much attention to album sales, and that at the same time this bundling shit is still being allowed to take place, is quite ridiculous. And I think that it's the kind of thing where, we all respect, I respect Tyler and I respect Khaled both for speaking on this issue, or no, for taking part in the issue. I don't think it's a big deal that they both took part in the bundling thing. At this point, bundling your shit with other shit so you can get more album sales and try to get it higher on the charts, this is part of the game. They're just playing along with the system. The system needs to be changed. The problem is systematic, if you will. I don't really know what else there is to say about it, but I mean, Tyler, the Creator, who has been essentially silent on all this, so wise to just sit back and just not say a damn thing, because it's so easy for him to just say nothing, right? And to just let Khaled just look a little wacky. I mean, you got to respect it, I think, because let's be real. Tyler came out of all this looking great. He got the #1 album, and he didn't have to look like a jerk. And Khaled kind of made himself look like a jerk. If he was smart, he would have just shut up. He would have just let this play out. He would have let the kid have his day, have his #1 album. Instead, Khaled kind of fucked up his brand a little bit. Who knows? I don't think 3 months from now this is going to be on the tip of too many people's lips, and Khaled's brand name will live on. But, not great strategy, if you ask me. Drop a like, drop a comment, nojumper.com, Adam22. Subscribe if you haven't. Khaled, where you at? Tyler, what's up? Peace.